From the NASDAQ market site in New York, I'm Matthew Bishop, and this is Philanthrocapitalism, a show that looks at where business and social change come together. Today I'm talking to Tal Keinan, who is partner at Clarity Capital and the author of a new book called Extinction. So let's turn a bit to your philanthropic work, and particularly lending, this lending organisation that you're on the board of. Tell us a bit about that.
So the organization is called KIEDF. I've chaired it for a number of years now. It's for me kind of a marriage of a few different passions. One is economic development. I think if you kind of try to parse the world's challenges, I think they're many and they're diverse. But if you look at solutions to those challenges, I think they're actually far fewer, meaning there are tools that fit a lot of different problems. And I think economic development underlies a lot of that. There's a lot that you can solve, not just hunger, poverty, but also conflict with economic development. And so KIEDF was attractive to me from that perspective, in that and I'll explain the model in a moment. But KIEDF was the most efficient way I could see of getting capital to people who could use it and turn it into a really kind of a productive, sustainable force. We do it with structured finance. Essentially, a big part of what we do at Clarity, in that we contribute what we call the equity to this lending program. And by lending, we do up to 1 million shekels. So most of our activities in Israel. 1 million shekels would be about $250,000 is kind of the high end of a loan for us. We call that a small business loan.
Yeah. And
then below, say, $15,000, 50,000 shekels, we call a micro loan. Again, but these are obviously developed economy terms. So those are the numbers. If you're doing this in emerging economies, the scale goes down, which has benefits and drawbacks. We provide the equity. We have Israeli and U.S. government first loss layers on top of that, and then we work with commercial lenders who are not in the philanthropy game at all, to be the senior tranche of these loans, which really gives us a lot of leverage. And we didn't invent it. Mohammed Yunus did. The insight that small borrowers are actually on average more creditworthy than large borrowers, and we use a lot of the same kind of Grameen Bank methodology. We lend primarily to women. We do cross-collateralization within communities. We do a lot of what we do is really straight out of that playbook, but we do it with the leverage that structured finance provides.
And in particular, it's this, you're offering this first loss kind of insurance that in a way protects the commercial lender from getting involved in what they would otherwise regard as too risky a transaction.
Too risky, and I think also too costly. So so we have 28 credit officers, each making very small loans, with the same 28 credit officers making loans, 2 or 3 orders of magnitude larger. The bank obviously has a kind of a more efficient business model. I would argue that they're taking more credit risk than they typically realize, but we fill that gap.
And you're providing these loans to all parts of the community in Israel, from the Orthodox, most extreme Orthodox Jews through to Palestinians. Yeah.
So we've been very targeted in our loan making. Again, part of that is to have the critical mass that enables cross-collateralization, right? So if you're making 3 or 4 loans to people who are all on the hook for each other, that's just a credit tool, to a kind of a protection. But also having a loan officer who is known and knows a community also gives us certain economies that we can use. We've also tried, we've done about $400 million of loans to date, and and our pace is about 60 million a year. And we hope to grow that. We've tried to address very specific issues in specific communities with the program, with varying levels of success. It hasn't always been.
Give me some examples.
So we have a Bedouin lending program, for example. So the Bedouin community in Israel has faced very special challenges in its economic development and in a social adjustment. These are traditionally mobile communities. They're wanderers. And 70 years ago, when borders went up in the Middle East, that lifestyle had to change by necessity. So these people have settled into towns and have largely been bypassed by this kind of surge in economic development in Israel. So Israel, you have an economy that's $33,000 or $34,000 GDP per capita today. It's a European economy by any measure, but large swaths of it have been left behind. And the Bedouin is one example. So we're quite active there.
And what are the challenges with lending to the Orthodox Jews or?
Well, so I think there are two communities in Israel that have been underemployed. We're making strides, but they're still far behind. One is ultra-Orthodox men. So ultra-Orthodox men, by and large, do not participate in the workforce in Israel. And Arab-Israeli women. Arab-Israeli women also, by just kind of culture, have had lower participation in the workforce. In both communities, people who actually want to get out into the workforce can go one of two routes. One is try to get a job where, in a company, which is typically quite difficult. Because of cultural constraints, Orthodox men don't, or say ultra-Orthodox men might not want to work with women who are dressed in a certain way. That's not, that they're not really integrated in that way. Or might not even have the basic skills that you'd be looking for at an accounting firm or law firm, whatever it is. So entrepreneurship is actually an interesting option for these people. And I say small entrepreneurship, a nail salon, a hairdresser, a bakery, some sort of retail establishment. These people are by and large not bankable. They're outside of the credit system in Israel. And you have communities like that around the world. We did a consulting project for the government of Ireland to launch a similar program in Ireland, similar issues, similar kind of communities that are sort of outside the system. So these are two communities where we have dedicated programs that we've tried to bring them into the economy. That's been quite successful. What hasn't been, we've tried to do integration between Arabs and Jews, and that's something that's still largely eluding us.
That seems to be beyond everyone at the moment.
I suppose, yeah, right, we're in good company.
But what impact have you had? I mean, have you been able to measure it?
Well, we, by our own metrics, we have either sustained or created over 50,000 jobs. Now, all of unemployment in Israel is about 200,000 jobs. So we feel we've taken a very significant bite out of unemployment. We think, I think in most developed economies, small business is going to be a major component of total employment. When we are able to help a single proprietor turn her business into a partnership of 2 or a small company of 10, I think that has a lot more impact than a hiring program at a large company. So that's a big piece of it. I'd say beyond that, there's a kind of a knock-on effect here in that the dignity that comes from being a borrower, paying your own way versus a recipient, and most people in these situations are on some form of government aid, and they come off government aid through these programs, and they become employers through these programs and leaders in their community. We can't measure that, but I can tell you that from my standpoint, and I spend a good amount of time with the borrowers. That is by far the biggest impact that we're having, and there are, I think, incredible knock-on effects that we'll never be able to measure, but I think we can feel them.